Okay, hi there, Relabelling Reactivity Deep Dive. This is the session to introduce Hudson, who's just about to knock over the camera.
Hudson, come here, leave it.
This gorgeous boy is Hudson, and this is his lovely owner, Bonnie, who's very graciously, I just make sure before I start whispering on, making sure that I'm coming out live in the group. Excellent, so I should be coming out live. And if anybody is picking this up, just give me a thumbs up to know that the audio is working. So I'll just hang on a second. I need to adjust that camera because we need to look at you, Hudson, not me. There we go. That's better. Look, handsome boy. Okay, so good. We've got somebody. If somebody is watching, can you just give me a thumbs up to let me know that the audio is coming out all right before I start whittering away? Excellent. I'll give it a second. Just let me know that you can hear me. Make them around, it's not a problem if you want them to.
Just worried about knocking the camera over.
Yeah. Typical German Shepherds, isn't it? Clutches that they are.
He's starting to get a little bit of control with his legs, but
Yeah.
still a bit all over
My friend that has them, she's like always like, oh God, you've got to have everything anti-German Shepherd proof level. Okay, so let's have a look if anybody's cool. Just give me a, can somebody just give me a thumbs up just to let me know that you can hear me okay? I think the audio should be fine. Or post a comment, I'll just have a look on my iPad. All good here, excellent, brilliant. Okay, so thank you for those that are slowly joining us. Hudson's obviously here for a period of time. His owner, Bonnie, has very graciously agreed to sort of share the work that she's been doing with Hudson. So those of you that followed me in the deep dive and on social media will be aware that I originally was going to have the little border collie Heidi join me for a period of 5 days, and I was going to do some work with her because she's got reactivity challenges to try and overcome some of those, or certainly to unpack what was going on with her, to be able to use it as a learning point.
Hudson,
for,
this way. What's
he's just about, he's determined to knock the camera over, but to use that dog's experience to help others to learn how to deal with their dog's reactivity challenges. Unfortunately, as you're aware, she had a couple of physical injuries, which meant that I wasn't happy to sort of do any formal training with her, and certainly that she needed to be looked at by a professional. So she went back yesterday to her owners. I only had her here for less than 24 hours. And that's all being sorted. And I reached out to my community, my Relabelling Reactivity community, which Bonnie is part of, and she very graciously has agreed to share what we've been doing with Hudson, her 7-month-old, 8-month-old?
8 months old this month.
Oh, 8-month-old German Shepherd puppy, because he's had some reactivity challenges. So we're going to just discuss today, obviously, a little bit of background about Hudson, which I'm sure many of you can relate to, and some of the experiences that Bonnie have, I absolutely know that some of you watching and picking this up will absolutely relate to, and hopefully how we're moving forward and helping him to overcome some of those challenges. Now, Bonnie, fortunately, as it happens, lives probably about 10 minutes away from me, which isn't obviously applicable for everybody. But the techniques and the things that we're doing with him can be implemented by anybody, anywhere. And that's the key thing that's different from the Relabelling Reactivity course to a lot of other processes, is that it doesn't rely necessarily on having the perfect storm. It just so happens that because Bonnie's local, I'm able to obviously, help her a little bit more with Hudson. So tell us a little bit more. Hudson, 8-month-old German Shepherd. Just tell everybody a little bit about his background then.
So Hudson was born in December. His breeder did a really good job of doing everything that you would expect a breeder to do, introducing him to novel sights and sounds and smells. Before he came to us, he'd met sheep and cats and other dogs and people and all those kind of things. We had him... Come here, Hudson. Come here. Let's pop his lead on before he does knock the camera over, I think. Because you're quite determined, aren't you, to knock the camera over. Come here. And there's lots of things to explore. So we had him at just before he was 10 weeks old, so he stayed with her slightly longer. In between times we was going over, we saw him once a week. We took him out to pub-friendly dogs, dog-friendly pubs, and pet shops and things like that. He'd been back to our house, he'd met our own dog, and then so we brought him home when he was just before he was 10 weeks old. I do daycare and dog walking, so in the first couple of weeks he met all of my dogs that come to me every day, and dogs that I go out walking with, all of which he was and still is absolutely fine with. Yeah, really, really good with all of them. We did all the normal things, took him to you know, pubs and shops and garden centres and, you know, high roads and all sort of normal things. Went to 2 different dog training classes with him. And then when he was 12 and a half weeks, he suddenly started barking at dogs that he saw out and about, but not in a sort of puppy exciting. It was very much hackles up, don't come near me. Obviously a fear-based bark. And we thought he was going through a fear period, so we spent a week keeping him away from dogs that other knows he'd already met and knew. And when we reintroduced him, please don't get the mouse rug, thank you. When we reintroduced him kind of back into the wild, I instantly started trying to build positive associations with other dogs. So we did lots of, you know, engage and disengage and having him, you know, below threshold and rewarding him when he didn't react and things like that. We, all of which he did really well up to a point. It's still, if that distance was, you know, too close, or if he perceived the dog was coming towards him, then he would react. We met up with, I met with another local trainer and did some parallel walking with her and a lovely stooge dog she borrowed. Reached out on Facebook, found some other people with good dogs, did some more parallel walking. Carried on going to classes, so it's a nice place to meet, you know, dogs in a controlled environment. And then we kind of got stuck, I think is the thing. It wasn't, he was very good at doing all of that, but it hasn't got us any further along. We still can't get near dogs without him wanting to snap at them. As he's got bigger, and obviously we're now heading into adolescence, so the intensity of his reaction has
escalated.
As expected, has escalated, and obviously he's got bigger and stronger, which makes it obviously a little bit harder to deal with.
So just a couple of points to sort of enlighten you. One is, as you can hear from Bonnie, Bonnie's done an incredible job with him, and Hudson's breeder is a good friend of ours. She did a phenomenal job of rearing these puppies. So everything about the dog setup would lead you to the fact that you go, I'm going to get a bomb-proof puppy, rock-solid temperament, etc., because everything has been put in his favour. So I puppy trained his mother at my puppy classes. She was the golden child. She was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. She had an amazing temperament, like super friendly, but not over-friendly, like calm, very, very bright, very, very willing. She's from working lines, and she had the perfect temperament. I mean, literally, she would be the dog in puppy class that you would use as a demo. She was that good. His father is been used quite a lot to produce sports dogs and police dogs. So again, baseline good temperament. Bonnie's obviously, and the reason why he was held a bit back is because the breeder had done her research to say that that's a better point of sending the puppy to their homes. And she did lots of with them, the caveat being that breeder needs to be active, and she did an amazing job. So then we asked the question, so what went wrong? So, or what has, and which is Bonnie, we were discussing this before we came on live. Bonnie was like, I slept up, lost sleepless nights about wondering what did I do wrong. The thing to say to, certainly Bonnie and to those of you who listen, sometimes you didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, so great breeder, great genetics, great upbringing, great first experiences, and yet you still have a dog with a challenge. So what is the cause root? Sometimes we don't definitively know, is the thing to say to you. Sometimes this could be a phase that he's going through, which I would definitely say is the case. So if we just go back in his puppyhood, 12 weeks is a dodgy age for a puppy anyway. It's a challenging age. They go through that fear period, they start to teeth, they become sensitive to environments, sights, sounds, because there's pain. So coming back to Heidi, she was a dog that, does he want to drink?
Just if he wants to drink, just wants to go and wander.
Yeah, probably.
He stopped him knocking the camera over.
Okay.
We took his socks away and stopped him knocking the camera over.
So Heidi was a dog that really articulated the importance of considering pain as a contributing factor to reactivity. So at 12 weeks, 12 to 14 weeks, your puppy's going to start teething. They're going to become more sensitive to things around their face, and often pain can create noise sensitivity. Definitely a factor with Heidi, and it could have been a factor with Hudson. He's okay.
I didn't want to go with him.
Okay. Definitely could have been a factor with Hudson, and also you have the breed there. You've got genetics. So working line German Shepherd, they're bred to be vigilant. They're bred to be a little bit guardy, and those traits, good boy, are going to definitely be exaggerated in those fear periods. So that could definitely be something. Now, in hindsight, what could we have done about it? Sometimes these things can be really subtle, so you aren't always able to pinpoint, oh, it was that experience. Sometimes it's obvious. For example, my puppy got jumped on by another dog, really, really obvious. We can ascertain a lot of the issues and subsequent challenges to that experience. That didn't necessarily happen with him. But it could simply be coming to a new environment. Although you had a lot of interactions with him prior, it could have just been something as he's entering that fear period and there's changes to his circumstances. And being a German Shepherd, they're environmental. Obviously, that has now got more extreme as he's got older. And as you can hear, Bonnie has done the most amazing job with implementing a behaviour modification protocol. So, for example, she's done parallel walking. She's done reinforce the dog for looking and observing and choosing to disconnect. She's obviously socialising with dogs that she feels are suitable. So all the things that I would say are standard a lot of people take as a process to deal with dogs with reactivity challenges. But as Bonnie said, it isn't getting her to that next level of change. So that's where we've taken, we've obviously been working with him. He's going to have that camera. Good boy.
Good boy.
That's where we've now taken a little bit more of a slightly different path with him. So with Hudson, we did his initial first consult at Bonnie's home, and what Bonnie very astutely did is she brought the dog out of the house. I met him on the road and interacted with him, and then we went in their back garden, so where there was open space. And as a dog, he was doing what he did now. He was he didn't want to approach me. He was very indifferent to me. He just was a little bit suspicious at first, but very quickly he went to being what I would call neutral, where he went, I don't know you, I've got no reason to ingratiate myself to you, but I'm happy that you're in my garden as it happens. Certainly with that type of dog, that would be the first thing that if you don't navigate appropriately could become problematic. So by nature, I would qualify him as aloof/suspicious. So he's a dog that goes, I like my people, I like my friends, I like my inner circle, but anybody else out of that, I'm going to keep a little healthy eye/caution of you. So in their their initial development, when they're younger, that can be from a place, what the dog will do is, which is what he does, is he operates from a place of fear. That aloofness, actually, and that standoffishness, if that's a word, at first will initially be fear. So the dog will base it on fear. He'll go, oh, stranger danger, whoa, whoa, whoa. As they get older, it becomes more hypervigilance/aloofness. So I'm going to keep an eye on you, and then that's when it switches to guarding. So his behaviour is very, very normal for dogs of that ilk. I say normal, but it can, certainly when we are socialised and we believe dogs are, that's when people think it's abnormal. So what his behaviour initially of being apprehensive, reserved and fearful was very, very much a precursor to what he will grow into, which will probably be an aloof dog that's a little bit guardy and edgy. So moving forward, the reality of him ever being everybody's best friend and being a Labrador is not a reality. It's not going to happen because we're then asking him to break the mould of however many years of genetics have caused. So first thing we discussed at great length is, you probably haven't seen him in his best light, but he is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful dog, like stunningly good looking and really athletic and rangy, and bred absolutely an athlete in his physical being. So that means then, as a dog with that disposition, we need to make sure that moving forward, Bonnie meets his needs in terms of mental and physical stimulation. That I have absolutely no concerns about. As you can hear, Bonnie is an exceptional dog owner, in that she's, her dogs are her life. So this isn't the normal case that I would deal with, where people are, for want of a better term, well-intended but somewhat naive about their dog's behaviour and what they signed up for. Bonnie was like, I wanted the German Shepherd, waited a gazillion years to get one, and obviously got Hudson. So that bit isn't going to be a problem. So, does he do man training already?
No.
No, okay. Do you do it with one of your others?
No, I've got a client who does it.
Okay,
that's what
fine.
I think.
Oh, yeah, okay, fine.
Who's very distantly related to him. They've got the same granddad.
Okay, fine.
So the dog, not the client.
Yeah. So it's some sort of purpose would be a great thing to get him into. Something like nose work, tracking. He's okay. He can do that. Tracking, anything where he can use his brain would be really, really good. And you'll probably find when he has a purpose or an activity, which I'm going to come through to what you've done with him thus far, he will probably be really, really good at. And that will allow him to be around people and dogs and things when he's on task, so to speak, and be confident. So he's going to be able to build his confidence up. So what Bonnie's done at present is do what most people take as a process to dealing with reactivity, where they click the dog for looking or reinforce for looking or disconnecting. Absolute textbook. because if you look at those scenarios, and this was a question somebody had, in those scenarios, the dog, in the dog's mind, is he's got a job to do. So his job when you've got him around other people is, okay, I do the ignoring thing. When he does the parallel walking, he's like, right, okay, I'm in loose lead walking mode. With dogs of this ilk, you need to look at every factor of their life and explain it to them that it's a job. Yeah, or it's because they want a purpose, they want direction. So he would have to play the dogs rush up to you game. Yeah, so that would basically be a focus exercise where you would explain to him, dogs walk past you and you get reinforcement for ignoring them. You would have to explain the dogs invade your personal space game, and that would be another little scenario that you would have to replicate. So one of the questions that I had in when I put the post out about Hudson was what people, which is a very classic thing. He's okay, it doesn't matter.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it's fine. That's all right, doesn't matter.
He's very much in the destroying age of adolescence.
Yeah, that is adolescence.
Yes, you can't have a bed now.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuffing has to be destroyed, doesn't it?
Absolutely, everything gets.
That started about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. One of the questions, sorry, just come back. The question was, what do I do when I put my dog in a scenario, the dog meets that particular dog, all is well, but if I take the dog 2 minutes down the road, or another dog approaches, or another situation, the dog regresses and goes back. That's because dogs aren't good at generalising. Yeah, dogs don't assume. So, for example, and I'm jumping a bit ahead of myself, the 3 sessions that we've done with Hudson have been one in Bonnie's home. Second one, Bonnie came to here, and we did a little bit of nose-to-nose interaction with 2 of my dogs, my small dogs. He was in the fenced area. The dogs were initially on the outside. Then we brought them together. He definitely was concerned about them, and then we eventually got him where he could walk around. But he definitely was hypervigilant. So because of that session, I suggested that we actually take the dogs out into more space so we could create more distance, and we start to integrate him with other dogs. So it would be very, very standard that if Hudson had developed confidence in one location, he wouldn't necessarily carry it in another. Because especially the breed that he is, they are environmental, he will assume whenever he goes to a new environment that he needs to be hypervigilant. So that stuff will always come back. So as part of moving this forward, what Bonnie would have to do is take him to lots of environments and preferably not the carpet. Have the carpet. Yeah, would have to take him into lots of different environments and replicate the setup. So what we did on the last session that we did is Bonnie had access to a freedom field, and the original intention was to do some parallel walking. And Bonnie got there, got him out, walked him around a little bit, and then I brought 2 dogs that are very used to being Stu's dogs, and tried to aim him at distance, and he was having none of it, wasn't he? He went absolutely ballistic. And it was really difficult for Bonnie and her other half to get focus. So if anything, it was making him 10 times worse. So I did what often is, I went against the grain, and I'm going to talk about this about science versus I suppose more traditional approaches to dog training. But what I did is I said, you know what we're going to do is we're going to I'd asked Bonnie prior if she could start muzzle training him, which she did within amount of days. She had him comfortable with the muzzle. Something worth considering with your reactive dog, so that alleviates your tension, because as I'm sure Bonnie will attest, his behaviour is definitely making you anxious.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. So to alleviate that, one is I'm happy to put my dogs in a level of jeopardy. One, because I know that my dogs aren't going to do anything back to him, and they're resilient and they're confident. And 2, because of my dogs, the way they're raised, I feel that they should be able to cope with any experiences they have. However, rather than just giving Bonnie my words that say my dog will be fine, I want to ensure that she feels safe. So we had him on a long line in the harness. We also had a muzzle on him. So if worst case scenario, he did happen to lunge at another dog, we know that he's not going to not going to be able to cause any physical damage. So what we actually did is I said, okay, let's get him out. I'm going to take all my dogs out. And I sort of I had them all in one area, and I said to Bonnie, just let the lead go and let's let him get around other dogs. Because the dogs currently, he lacks confidence to just let himself relax enough to be around other dogs. And it was a great day. We all loved it, didn't we? I think I put it on Instagram. We were absolutely. It was like the raining of rainy days, wasn't it? Like, it was like we were literally. It was torrential, and I was cursing Bonnie and half. But never mind. I said I love my job and I like dogs, so I'm going to tough it out. But it was horrific. But we stuck it out, and we stayed out for. Probably about
there was a point when you said, "How much longer have we got?"
I was like, right, am I on billable hours? But it was fine. But we were probably about an hour and a half.
I think it was about an hour and 15, 20 minutes, something like that. Yeah,
so what we did is we just let him figure out. You know, we let him be around. My dogs didn't have anything. They just ignored him. They just ignored him, which is what I'd expect them to do. And they would literally take zero notice of him, and he could approach them and go up to them. And a couple of times he had a little moment in which we just intercepted him. Went, no, we're not doing that. Redirected him onto a smell, or just walked on. Kept very slowly moving around the field. So a big thing I said to Nathan and Bonnie was, don't stop. If you stop, what's going to happen is the dogs are all going to gravitate, or he's going to cling to you. He's going to feel more vulnerable and more likely to react. And he's a dog that he won't go to the toilet outside is one of the things that...
not very often, it's quite rare.
And normally because he's so hyper-vigilant and aware, and as the session went on, he actually went, which is, we should be celebrating, he went to the toilet.
He did both.
Yeah, both, outside, which shows that he's actually starting to relax, because my dogs ignored him, and they gave him distance, he was able to just relax enough, and he started to, a couple of times, he wanted to go and play with them, didn't he? Or wanted to go and be curious. I want to say
a few bits where his body language really,
it was really, really great to see. I would have videoed it, but I think I'd have lost my phone in the Titanic, really. But it was brilliant because he went from being really tense and worried. And what dogs like him assume is they assume the worst. They think, oh my God, the dog's going to come up to me. Oh, that I need to be defensive and I need to make the dog stay away. And my dogs went, we don't see you, we're not interested in you, we're doing our own thing, we're oblivious to you. And he went, oh.
Mally was literally oblivious to him.
Yeah. She took T-pokes, went, oh, crashed into him. Oh gosh, there's a black dog in my space. But they because my dogs are good at being indifferent, he developed his confidence. So obviously, most people aren't going to be able to come down to me, and although I'd love to be able to be in a position to do that and have everybody with a reactive dog and be around dogs that are well versed, how do you replicate that is the question. So, like Bonnie did, reach out to your local community, reach out to fellow dog lovers, and explain that you've got a dog with some challenges that you'd like to ingratiate yourself and the dog to other dogs. But always, like Bonnie did, ensure that safety protocols in place. Use a long line. He was on a harness. He had a muzzle on. So then the other people have a level of assurance that nothing untoward is going to happen. Now, obviously, we did that in one location, and what I suggested to Nathan and Bonnie afterwards was we're not going to go to that location again. We're going to change it, and we'll change up the scenario. I might have mixed the number of dogs up I had the next time, because I don't want him to just go, okay, I'm fine with all these guys, and we're going to switch up the moving parts. For the reason that we discussed earlier, so coming back to the original question, is you need to, when you're working through the process of integrating your dogs with other dogs, you need to slightly change the scenario. What people tend to do is get stuck on going, right, I'm going to mix in with the black dog, and I'm going to do that for 6 weeks, and then I'm going to move on to the white dog. What I would suggest doing is to move this process quicker, is go, right, today I'm going to do a black dog, right, I'm going to set the scenario up, but I'm going to use a white dog. Next day I'm going to set the scenario up, but I'm going to do a small dog. But I would probably go to the same location, but just change one entity. So now, this goes against the grain of a lot of what would be a stringent, meticulous, scientific process of going, right, well, you do the black dog, the dog's comfortable, and then we change it to the white dog, etc. The complexity or the challenge of that is that becomes unrealistic for the real world. Like, although Bonnie, as you can hear, is like incredible in what the amount of effort that she's gone through, there's still always going to be, we take Hudson out our front door, and the one dog that you haven't encountered turns up, and then that sets him back. So when you've got reactive dogs, the biggest thing I urge people is push yourself out of your comfort zone, and that's something that I encourage all the people in my group. And we've got a safe space where they can talk through their plan of what they intend on doing. They can get advice about what to do, and they can get feedback about how it went. So again, push yourselves and your dogs a bit out of your comfort zone. Like with Bonnie and with Heidi's owners, there is a tendency when you have a dog with challenges to make your world smaller. So you just avoid, don't you? You go, right, I'm going to go to the freedom field because I'm safe. And there is absolutely validity in doing that, because sometimes you just go, I don't want to do the stress of it. And that's really, really important to have that balance. But now and again, you need to go, do you know what? I'm going to step outside my comfort zone and I'm going to try and walk in, in a place where there could be some challenges. But as long as you've got those those safety protocols in place, again, use a muzzle if you feel like you're a bit anxious, or a head collar, create distance, and make sure you use... Oh, you've killed that toy.
I did think you might.
That's okay.
Sorry.
It's fine. My dogs will be mortified, but that's fine. But just making sure that you've put those processes in place should help you start to build your confidence out. Because effectively, I always look at behaviour modification a bit like doing exercise. In order for you to get stronger, you need to slightly impose a level of stress on your body. That's how effective, exercise, if you're running or doing weight training, anything, what you do is you impose a little bit of stress, just make sure it doesn't chew that, on your body.
He doesn't normally eat things and chews. He's much more into the destroying.
Okay, that's okay. He clearly has done. You're lucky you're handsome. But yeah, you slightly create a little bit of stress to your body, and that gives your body time to adjust. Now, the caveat to that is you don't want to do that 5 days a week. So we did our session, was it last week?
Wednesday. Yeah.
So we're now got a session obviously tomorrow, so that's a week later. Bonnie's gone away and I talked for about letting him have some decompression days in between, and then we're going to just, push that a little bit more. We're going to another venue tomorrow.
No, same
venue tomorrow. And then we're going to expose him, probably we're going to switch the scenario up. So when you're working through this and you're employing the goodwill of others, have a plan in process of how you're going to expose that dog to different environments. Think about the environment, think about the dogs, think about the setup. So tomorrow we might, for example, I had the dogs off the lead initially and Hudson came in. We might have it that Hudson's in, I might walk my dogs up on the lead and then build it. So we're just changing the picture up. Now, I absolutely understand that tomorrow we've got access to a freedom field, an enclosed situation. It may not always be practical to do this in the real world. However, what I would suggest to everybody is do this. You're better off doing this sort of a behaviour modification once a month as opposed to trying doing it every day, but creating the right learning experience for the dog, so little and often. I mean, obviously Bonnie's local, so we can do this more regularly, but if I wasn't close in, living locally to Bonnie, I would say if we did this every 6 weeks, it would be better in a controlled environment than trying to overexpose him and not being able to control the moving parts. But the big thing is putting the groundwork in to be able to push yourself out of that comfort zone, So in terms of your, how did you feel the session went the other day then, from your point of view?
Yes, so I was a bit disappointed that I thought being there for that long, he would have relaxed enough to have joined in, because he's so good with the dogs that he's with, and we were there for such a while. But that was my own hope, I guess. But other than that, I thought, I think he did really well.
And I think
he didn't do anything. When you first said bring him in and drop the long, I went back to Nathan and said, I think I'm going to throw up. Because I thought that was going to go worse than it did. He sort of rushed in, didn't he? And then went, oh my God, dogs. Which showed that it is what we think, that it's fear.
So where does that, from your point of view, have you had a dog do anything untowards before? Have you ever had a dog be reactive before? That's create that little, or is it just him?
No, not really. I've had dogs that don't cope with dogs that come right up to them.
That's
normal. No, I haven't. I mean, some of my clients' dogs are kind of reactive, but I'm not really working with them. They're just dogs I walk, so I do just avoid them. I'm not training them. It's not my issue, sort of thing. Although I probably do have some that are as bad as him in terms of distance, but they're smaller. So it's a big difference when you've got.
So is that a factor? Is it
a factor for me because the size. Because I have a few mobility issues. I've got really bad arthritis in both knees and a dodgy ankle and weak hands. So the actual worry that I can't physically hold, that's much better since we've got the head collar. Because I do, because I now know that I can hold him. And more importantly, feel relaxed holding him. It's no good if you see something coming and you start tensing up because whereas with that, I know that I don't have to because I've got him. So that helps.
Absolutely. And when I talked about the causes of reactivity, you've got physical, you've got trauma and relationships. So part of that is, and this, if you really strip back reactivity and why people have so many issues with it, it's because they feel out of control and they feel vulnerable. Because if it was, hypothetically, okay, and I know there's people out there with smaller dogs, but if this was a tiny little dog and he had an issue and you could just pick him up, it would not make you feel as,
definitely.
Some people it may, but I would say in your instance it probably wouldn't. But it's the fact that he's big and he's powerful, and obviously on mobility issues, makes you feel more vulnerable and therefore a little bit more out of control.
I think you've killed this.
Yeah, exactly. You've killed that one. I think my sewing machine.
I think that's dead now.
Yeah.
I think that's beyond sewing.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know the sewing machine, so don't worry. But yeah, definitely the feeling of being out of control is definitely a consistent undercurrent with people that have reactive dogs. So the key to alleviating that mindset is to make sure that you're in control of as many variables as you possibly can. So we had him on a harness and we had him on a long line. So in your mind you go, well, if the dog does make a beeline for another dog, we know we have a really big safety net we can grab. Second thing is we had him on a muzzle. So okay, let's logic this out. If he does do something, he runs up to one of my dogs, the most he's going to do is muzzle punch them. Yeah, in theory, if he was a fully grown male German Shepherd, I might be more concerned about that. But he's a 7-month-old puppy. I'm thinking, okay, there's a chance. The dogs that we mixed them with, primarily they were bigger dogs. So again, they're resilient, they're physically robust. So when you look at it in that sense, you go, well, actually, logically, where we're taking, the risk that we're taking is small. It's smaller. Are you with me? So large dogs, he's on a muzzle, we've got him on a long line, we had him on a harness, there was 3 of us, so we go, okay, but all goes left, there's 3 adults here, we should be able to peel him off or rescue him or lift him up or whatever.
What we need to do.
Exactly. So all those factors, that alleviates that little bit of tension, and that's what I would urge everybody to consider. Rather than looking at, feeling vulnerable, go, okay, what can I control? Can I put any safety protocols in place? Is my dog muzzle trained? Do I have a long line? Is the field, again, we use the secure field. That was another entity that we helped alleviate that tension. Now, we could have done it over the local rec as an option. Obviously, that would have put a little bit more stress on the situation because now we could have had a random member of the public turn up. So we wanted to alleviate that. But the big thing is, and this is the constant fear with people that have reactive dogs, is they just make their world smaller and smaller. The easiest thing to do would be to just go, okay, do you know what? That's what he is. I'm only going to walk him at a freedom field for the rest of his life. And that's not a failing on Bonnie's part, because she's still going to be giving this dog a great life. But is that the best life that this dog could have? And I would say probably not. We want to be able to take him to, the seafront and go for a coffee and have him in a pub and all those things that people want from their dogs to have the best life from them. So from your point of view or as a dog owner, with having a dog that has reactivity issues, has that been as an experience, has that been quite unnerving? Has it been is there stigma attached to it, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it does. I think breed plays a bit of a part in that because, like you say, if you've got a little chihuahua doing it, people
always amusing.
Dog shouting. When you've got a big German Shepherd, people, that dog shouldn't be out in public, kind of thing. So there is an element of that.
Yeah.
I think because of what I do for profession, I think that adds more of a stigma. You feel like you shouldn't have a dog with an issue if you're working professionally with dogs. Obviously, we all know that isn't the case, but that is the perception that's sometimes out there. And the biggest thing is, I think I constantly feel like I failed him some, because he's such a cracking dog. And his general demeanour, as you can see, really, is that he's quite a laid-back chap for a working line German Shepherd. I mean, he needs to do things, obviously, but once those needs are met, he's really happy to just chill, which makes him a dog I would like to take everywhere with me and be, pretty much a constant companion. But at the moment, it's limited, and that makes me feel sorry for him. I think he's only 8 months old, and I already feel his world is limited. So the thought of, well, it's not going to happen. As I thought of it, the next 10, 12 years having a limited life is just it has to be. It has to be better. It has to be better than it is.
So there's lots of things to take from what Bonnie's just said. First is, let's talk about the social stigma. So when you have a dog that's got behaviour that can be qualified as reactive, often there's a social stigma, and it's social stigma that a lot of the times that it's stuff that people with the dog actually put on themselves, the perception of others. Now, there is also the possibility that people are going to say, oh, you've got a big dog and, he looks scary, etc., etc. I always say to people, what other people think of me is none of my business. So what other people think of my dogs has nothing to do with me. I let them think what they want to think. And it's really important to do the work on yourself, to not develop those things of, oh, what does so-and-so think of? Oh, I'm going to, and the other thing, obviously, as you expressed is, if you have, if you're in a professional role, like if you're a trainer watching this, I mustn't have a dog that's reactive. Dogs are dogs. There is no such thing as the perfect dog. Every single dog I've ever owned, I think I'm up to 23 dogs, has had something, not consistently, but over my lifetime, I've had a lot of dogs, and there is no such thing as a dog that comes out and it's absolutely perfect. They all have something, some issue, some challenge, something to work through and overcome, because that is by definition why you own dogs. You know, they are also unique, they are also different, they are also special in their unique ways, and it's down to us to mould them to be what we want them to be, and that's down to our role. So the other thing when you do have that, if social stigma and that builds anxiety, is make sure that you're doing the work on yourself. Oh, no, it's right. Good boy. Good. Make sure that you're doing the work on yourself to build your own confidence up. That's okay. Somebody comes. Oh dear. We'll do this all. That's okay. So we'll just pull that, and we'll bring if we. Yeah. So, 1 second. Oh, right. Sorry. Don't worry. Okay.
I know, you were getting brave, wasn't you? And then there was a person.
Let me shut that door, and then he can wander again. Good. That's fine. Look at the colour. That's fine. Good. So, that's a really good little example there. Oh, let me just change that back. Oh, camera. So, that's all right. That's okay. That's a not dog being a normal dog. So, again, so that's really different. Good. So you can just, once he's, give him a second to just sort himself out, and then bring him back and just ask him to lie down. So he's in the house, doesn't know the house. Somebody comes through the front door, he now goes into German Shepherd mode. That's not the dog being a bad dog, that's him fulfilling what he is. So just call him back. So the big thing is be mindful of not escalating that. So just lure him. Good boy. Give him a treat. Good. And then lure him into a controlled position. Good. And feed him. Good. Excellent. Perfect. And then intermittently feed him.
Down.
Don't re-cue him. Just put him back. So if he gets up, just lure him back into position. Perfect. So rather than letting him escalate and getting him so aroused, we're saying, okay, you've seen the bad guy off. So now what we're going to do is we're going to give you a job to do. So his job is lying down. That's now, we've dealt with that. We've protected him from the serial killer, so we can now, So when your dog gets that situation, bring him back, Hudson. So try not too much verbal communication. Bring him back, just lure him back into position. So now we're doing something. Yeah. So real casual. So if he does get up again, put him back in, lure him. Good. Just give him direction. Don't feed him this time. So we're not gonna. What we don't want to do is get into and again. Good. So just bring it back. Just go and get him. Good. Just go and get him, bring him back. Good. So pop him on the lead so we can limit his. Okay. Pop him on. Here he is. Good. So what we're going to do now is give him direction. So he's concerned about the stranger danger. So we're going to just explain to him. Good. So give him a second. Bring him back. Good. Good. Go in. Good. Just say settle or lie down or whatever.
Listen. Down.
Good. Feed. Good boy. Good.
Stay down.
Pause. Good. And then just build a little bit of duration. Good. So he can woof. That's not the end of the world. But what we're going to do now is just get him to refocus. Good. Again. Good. Excellent. So put him back. Lure him. Good. Don't feed him if you have to re-lure him now. Good. Pause. Just wait for like 2 seconds and then feed him. Good. Feed. Perfect. Good. Good. Pause. Good boy. So you can praise him. Good boy. Super. So the other thing is, so just get the toy back out and give him the toy back out. So the fluffy. Good boy. Here you go. Have that. Good boy.
Would you like a fluffy?
Yeah. Good.
You've kind of killed it, haven't you?
That's fine. Good. So he can have. That's the other thing we can do. Yeah. So often when we stick with food isn't enough to reinforce the dog or to distract the dog. So we will use something a little bit more high value or valuable to the dog. You can have a little game with him if you want. Just encourage him to play. So we're getting back into a happy state of mind. Good boy. Good. So throw it towards the door. See if you'll break. Get that one. Get it. Good boy. So the other thing to do is to shift their mindset. So going from hypervigilance and concern to now getting him to be happy and jolly. Yeah. Good. So ask him to good. Take it off him. Ask him to lie down.
Drop down.
Help him.
I'll give him a sec. He has a delayed reaction.
Okay. Good. And reward him. Good. Good play. Now break him off and do another one. So give and. Ready, just down.
Down.
Good. Stop thinking about it.
Brain engage brain.
Good.
Hudson, down.
Good. So break him out a bit. You can't just move him a little bit. Good. So use good. Down. Good boy.
Good boy.
Good.
Ready?
Reward. Get it. Do it again. Do that again.
Good boy.
Good.
Ready? Stop.
Good. So can you do a sit from that? Yeah. Good. Good. So that's right. Then bring him back and do another down with him. Good. So put him into a happy state, and then we'll.
That's my finger. Thank you. That wasn't the fluffy.
Good.
That was my finger. Ready? 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 Let's go.
Good. Take it off him.
Ready? Drop. Down.
Reward. Yes! Get it. Throw it. Get it. Good. So now we're getting him back to being happy and not so aware. Sometimes food doesn't have that, it isn't strong enough to override the distraction now cause. Good. Now he can wait, now start to build duration. Okay, good. So now we've got his brain in a happier state, so we've switched it to being all aware. We've got him jolly. Now we can go back to what we were doing, which now we can do some, what I do is feed. Put him back.
Down.
Good. Help him. Good.
Hudson, down.
Good. Try not to re-cue. So show him. Good. Good. Now intermittently feed him, and then every now and again break him off and have a little toy play with him. Good. So in that situation, it was somebody coming in the house. Let's say hypothetically it was a dog. I might switch between using a toy with him if he's toy motivated, because you'll probably find that the toys, one, it's a better reinforcer for the dog. Two, it will create more focus. So that might be something else to consider, to use a toy, so you can throw a toy for him. Get it.
Ready?
Get it. Good. Get the toy. Good. And he can have it now. Good boy. Good. He can chew it.
Enthusiasm. Get it.
That's all right. Doesn't matter. Good. Okay. Let's have a look if there's any questions. Oh, hang on. Okay, so is there any questions on anything that we've discussed or covered? So Elaine says, using a muzzle on Denver has given me much more confidence. I'm able to walk him on my own past other dogs. Even though he still reacts to certain ones, I know he can't do any real harm. Yeah, absolutely. It just removes that tension. So definitely having something like a muzzle or a halty, just so that you can control the bite end of the dog is really, really important. Or it just, as I said, it just changes it removes some of the anxiety. Massive other thing to consider, good boy, is to consider using good boy. Toys versus food. Sometimes we get stuck as trainers on using food as a reinforcer. And using something like a toy play can get the dog in a happier state of mind, so that that then stops them being so tense and aware. So now even you can see now he's much more focused on Bonnie. He's less aware of the environment, even though Lois is still moving around. He's less aware and he's less hypervigilant, which is a much more healthier state for a mental state for the dog to be in. So don't just get stuck on using food as a good takeaway. That was really good that happened. That wasn't planned, by the way. That's good. Okay, anybody got any questions before we... okay. If you would only do training every few weeks, what would you do in between if you don't want them rehearsing the behaviour, Chris asked. So, when I say training, it means only access to the other dog. So, for example, obviously we're going to do a session tomorrow, but which is only a week apart, and even that, it's not like we're meeting up every day. In the interim time, I would absolutely, go back to my foundation work. I would be working on self-control, working on focus, working on impulse control, doing all that stuff, working on recall to give you those skills that if you do enter a situation which you find challenging or problematic, you can ask the dog to sit, to down, to come back when he's called. That's fine. You can get some level of control of the dog, which is obviously, as I explained earlier, the underlying current with dogs that are reactive. Let's have a look. Any other questions? Hopefully that answers the question. So it doesn't mean that you have to... In fact, I absolutely wouldn't do work on something like reactivity every day because it becomes all consuming. You just want to sort of like work a little bit, build their confidence, go back to the ranch, do some of the fun stuff, do other stuff.
It's not your time to decompress,
absolutely,
either, is it, if you're doing it all the time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Unless you're maybe so don't find it stressful, you need to decompress as well.
I'm just going to draw attention to the fact that you're on the bigger chair, but I'm very secure myself. I don't have an insecurity thing there.
It's because you put your team there.
Yeah,
that's why I sat here, because your team was there.
Chair envy, yeah. Okay, anybody else any questions? That was good. So hopefully this has given you a little bit of insight into how to move forward with your reactive dogs, how to build their confidence up in other situations, And obviously, as you saw, how to deal with a scenario when the dog does have a moment. Yeah, often people get really, really stuck on the dog doesn't have to behave perfectly, but we want strategies of being able to change, remedy, alter, manage, and so forth and so forth. Alrighty, all good? I think we're good. Alright, I don't know if there's any final questions. I'm just going to check on my iPad. So tomorrow, we are going live at 1.
No.
Again, no, we're not.
No.
Hang on a second, what's the time? I've forgotten it.
Hang on, let me just find my calendar. I think the field's booked at 12:15.
Oh yes, that's right. Okay,
Is that right?
That's right.
That's
now I remember.
right.
Yeah. So we'll be going live at 12:30, where we're going to do a little session with Hudson and introducing other dogs. That will be in this group. That will be at 12:30 tomorrow. And we will be in a freedom field, and we'll run you through some scenarios. If you're interested in watching that, join me tomorrow at 12:30 British Summer's time. If you have any questions on this live, just post them in the comments, and I will pick them up and I'll answer them. And obviously, thank you to Bonnie and Hudson for letting us, being so open to sharing their journey with us. But yes, tomorrow should be a good one. All right, I think that's about it then. All good. All right, everybody. As I said, enjoy whatever you're doing. If you do have any questions, add them to the thread. If you've got anybody that you know that would benefit from being part of this group, the information's free. It's going to be available for the next week, if not longer. Yeah, longer than that. If you feel that they will benefit from seeing the content, by all means, tell them to join. And yeah, if you have any questions, by all means, ask. All right, we're going to shoot before he knocks the camera on. He's been very good. See you later, all.